D'Artagnan, in 2 steps, was engaged with the foe, whom, according to custom, he attacked impetuously, but he met this time with a skill and a strength of arm that gave him pause. Twice he was obliged to step back; his opponent stirred not 1 inch. D'Artagnan returned and again attacked him. Twice or thrice thrusts were attempted on both sides. Without effect, sparks were emitted from the swords like water spouting forth. At last D'Artagnan thought it was time to try one of his favourite feats in fencing. He brought it to bear, skilfully executed it with the rapidity of lightning, and struck the blow with a force which he fancied would prove irresistible. The blow was parried. "Stith!" he cried, with his Gascon accent. At this exclamation his adversary bounded back and, bending his bare head, tried to distinguish in the gloom the features of the lieutenant. As to D'Artagnan, afraid of some feint, he still stood on the defensive. "Have a care," cried Porthos to his opponent, "I've still 2 pistols charged." "The more reason you should fire the first," cried his foe. Porthos fired. The flash threw a gleam of light over the field of battle. As the light shone on them a cry was heard from the other 2 combatants. "Athos!" exclaimed D'Artagnan. "D'Artagnan!" ejaculated Athos. Athos raised his sword, D'Artagnan lowered his. "Aramis!" cried Athos. "Don't fire!" "Ah, is it you?" "Aramis," said Porthos, and he threw away his pistol. Aramis pushed his back into his saddle-bags and sheathed his sword. "My son!" exclaimed Athos, extending his hand to D'Artagnan. This was the name which he gave him in former days, in their moments of tender intimacy. "Athos!" cried D'Artagnan, wringing his hands. "So you defend him, and I, who have sworn to take him dead or alive, I am dishonoured by you." "Kill me," replied Athos, uncovering his breast, "if your honour requires my death." "Oh, woe is me, woe is me!" cried the lieutenant. "There's only one man in the world who could stay my hand; by a fatality that very man bars my way. What shall I say to the cardinal?" "You can tell him, sir," answered a voice which was the voice of high command in the battle field, "that he sent against me the only 2 men capable of getting the better of 4 men of fighting man to man, without discomfiture, against the Comte de Lawfort and the Chevalier d'Herblay, and of surrendering only to 50 men." The prince exclaimed at the same moment Athos and Aramis, unmasking as they addressed the Duc de Beaufort, whilst D'Artagnan and Porthos stepped backward. "50 cavaliers!" cried the Gascon and Porthos. "Look around you, gentlemen, if you doubt the fact," said the duke. The 2 friends looked to the right. To the left they were encompassed by a troop of horsemen. "Hearing the noise of the fight," resumed the duke, "I fancied you had about 20 men with you, so I came back with those around me, tired of always running away, and wishing to draw my sword in my own cause, but you are only 2. Yes, my lord, but, as you have said, 2 that are a match for 20," said Athos. "Come, gentlemen, your swords," said the duke. "Our swords!" cried D'Artagnan, raising his head and regaining his self-possession. "Never, never!" added Porthos. Some of the men moved toward them. "One moment, my lord," whispered Athos, and he said something in a low voice. "As you will," replied the duke. "I am too much indebted to you to refuse your first request. Gentlemen," he said to his escort, "withdraw. Monsieur d'Artagnan, Monsieur du Vallon, you are free." The order was obeyed. D'Artagnan and Porthos then found themselves in the centre of a large circle. "Now, D'Herblay," said Athos, "dismount and come here." Aramis dismounted and went to Porthos, whilst Athos approached D'Artagnan. All 4 once more together. "Friends," said Athos, "do you regret you have not shed our blood?" "No," replied D'Artagnan, "I regret to see that we, hitherto united, are opposed to each other on nothing will ever go well with us hereafter. Oh, heaven! No, all is over," said Porthos. "Well, be on our side now," resumed Aramis. "Silence, verblay!" cried Athos. "Such proposals are not to be made to gentlemen such as these. 'Tis a matter of conscience with them, as with us. Meantime, here we are enemies," said Porthos. "Gramercy, who would ever have thought it?" D'Artagnan only sighed. Athos looked at them both, and took their hands in his.